Ever wondered what happens when engineers stop caring about how an aircraft looks and focus only on making the impossible fly? In today's video, we're diving into 10 vintage aircraft so bizarre, so weird, and so unbelievably insane, they look more like failed sci-fi experiments than real machines. You'll see flying cars, jet-powered crop dusters, giant airborne whales, and aircraft that honestly look too dangerous to leave the ground. Some of these creations were decades ahead of their time, while others were complete nightmares with wings. And trust me, by the time we reach number 1, you'll be asking yourself one question: how did pilots survive flying these things? Starting our countdown at number 1 is the Antonov An-72, a Soviet transport aircraft that looks like it's permanently shocked to be in the air. First introduced in 1977, this machine was built for one purpose: to dominate harsh environments like rough, unpaved Siberian runways. And to make that happen, engineers pulled off something seriously clever. They used the Coanda effect by mounting two massive turbofan engines aggressively forward and directly above the wings. The high-speed exhaust flows over the wing surface, creating extra lift at low speeds. The result? Incredible short takeoff performance, but also one of the strangest looking aircraft ever built. Those oversized engines perched on top of the wings give it a hilarious face, like a pair of wide, staring eyes. That's exactly why it earned the nickname Cheburashka, after a big-eared cartoon character. To others, it looks like a confused bulldog, or even a flying metal frog. Despite its goofy appearance, this thing is a beast, capable of hauling over 16,000 pounds of cargo and taking off in under 2,000 feet. So here's the question: would you sacrifice sleek design for pure performance? And if you think this one looks weird, wait until you see what's next. Coming on number 2 is the Miles Aerovan, a 1945 British twin-engine transport that completely reimagined what an aircraft could look like. The goal was simple: create a cheap, short-haul workhorse capable of hauling up to 3,000 pounds, even loading a full family car without special equipment. But turning that idea into reality led to something truly bizarre. To fit those massive rear-loading doors, engineers gave it a strange tadpole-like shape, with a high-mounted tail boom that made it look awkward and top-heavy. This thing doesn't resemble a traditional airplane at all. It looks like a vintage camper van that somehow grew wings. Picture an old caravan, flattened out, with a giant bubble cockpit and rolling through the sky like a flying brick. It completely ignored the sleek 1940s design language in favor of pure utility, cruising at a slow 112 miles per hour. Still, you've got to respect the raw practicality. So, would you actually fly in this airborne van or stick to a regular jet? And if you think this is weird, wait till you see what's next. At number 3, we've got the Edgley Optica, a British light aircraft from 1979 that looks less like a plane and more like a flying insect. The idea behind it was actually genius. Helicopters were expensive, loud, and high maintenance, so designer John Edgley wanted a cheaper, quieter alternative for aerial observation and police patrols. His solution? A fully glazed panoramic cockpit placed right in front of a slow-spinning ducted fan. The result was something straight out of science fiction, an aircraft that could cruise slowly and quietly while offering unmatched visibility. Visually, the Optica is basically a mechanical dragonfly. That massive glass bubble cockpit looks like a giant insect eye, and the ducted fan behind it feels like a compact jet engine squeezed between twin-tail booms. It even gives off strong sci-fi vibes, almost like those bubble-style fighters from space movies or a futuristic escape pod. But here's the wild part: it cruises at just around 80 miles per hour, making it one of the most relaxed flying experiences ever. So, would you trust sitting inside a giant glass bubble with a spinning fan right behind you? Let me know. And if you think this looks strange, the next aircraft is on a whole different level. At number 4 is the Aerospaceline Super Guppy, a plane that proves aerodynamics is sometimes just a polite suggestion. Born during the 1960s space race, this colossal machine was NASA's answer to a massive problem: transporting huge Saturn V rocket components from California to Florida without waiting weeks for sea travel. The solution was wild. Engineers took a Boeing transport, sliced it open, and added an absurdly oversized, bloated upper fuselage. The result? An aircraft so enormous it barely looks real. The Super Guppy resembles a pregnant metallic whale floating through the sky, like a vintage airliner that somehow swallowed an entire blimp. Its nose even hinges open over 110 degrees like a giant mouth, ready to swallow massive cargo whole. It looks like a flying cartoon, a silver zeppelin with wings, and honestly, it's hard to believe it even gets off the ground. Yet despite its ridiculous appearance, this 50,000-pound flying giant played a crucial role in making the Apollo moon missions possible. So, would you want modern cargo companies to bring back something this crazy for oversized freight? Let me know what you think, and if you thought this was insane, the next aircraft takes things to a whole new level. Number 5 brings us to pure aviation madness, the PZL M-15 Belphegor. Born in the 1970s from Soviet agricultural ambition and built by Polish engineers, this aircraft was designed to be a modern crop duster for massive state-owned farms. But here's where things went completely off the rails. Officials insisted it had to be powered by a jet engine to match the jet age. The result? A bizarre and almost terrifying hybrid. A slow-flying biplane loaded with chemical tanks, powered by a loud, fuel-hungry turbofan. Visually, it looks like something straight out of a post-apocalyptic movie, an unholy fusion of a 1920s biplane and a modern jet, covered in sprayers and painted in dull industrial colors. With twin tail booms and its engine awkwardly mounted on top, it feels more like a flying farm machine than an aircraft. It even earned the nickname Belphegor after a noisy demon, and honestly, it fits perfectly. Weighing over 12,000 pounds fully loaded, it remains the only jet-powered biplane crop duster ever made. So what were engineers thinking? Was this genius or complete insanity? Let me know, and if you think this is crazy, the next aircraft takes confusion to a whole new level. At number 6, we have the Ryan FR Fireball, a US Navy fighter that feels like it's stuck between two eras, battling a serious identity crisis. Back in 1944, engineers were trying to solve a real problem: how to transition from reliable propeller aircraft to the new but risky jet technology. Early jets were slow to respond, especially during carrier landings, which made them dangerous. So the Navy came up with a wild solution: a mixed-power aircraft featuring a traditional piston engine and propeller in the front, paired with a hidden turbojet engine in the rear for high-speed performance. The result? A plane that's basically the mullet of aviation: business in the front, party in the back. From the front, it looks like a standard World War II fighter, but as it flies past, you suddenly notice something's off. No exhaust pipes on the sides and a jet nozzle lurking in the tail. It's like two completely different aircraft fused into one, a true Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde of the skies. Landing at number 7 is the Piasecki VZ-8 Airgeep, the US military's bold attempt at building a real-life flying car. Back in the late 1950s, the idea was simple but ambitious. Create a vehicle that could do everything a Jeep could, but glide effortlessly over rough terrain like swamps, forests, and steep hills, all without requiring expert pilot skills. Piasecki's solution was wild, using two massive ducted rotors placed in front of and behind the pilot in a tandem setup. The result looked like something straight out of science fiction: a flat, rectangular platform about 26 feet long, with two giant fans embedded into it, and seats bolted right in the middle. The pilot and passenger sat completely exposed, hovering just a few feet above the ground in what looked like a militarized hoverboard or a speeder bike from a futuristic world. It feels like an early prototype of modern drones, decades ahead of its time. Weighing around 2,000 pounds, this flying Jeep had serious potential, but helicopters ultimately proved more practical, stopping it from mass production. So imagine this: could a hovering transport like this actually work for modern soldiers today? Let me know your thoughts, because if you think this was wild, the next machine takes things to a whole new level. Screaming in at number 8 is the Fairey Rotodyne, a brilliant British engineering marvel that was ultimately destroyed by one fatal flaw: its own noise. Back in the late 1950s, the vision was revolutionary. An aircraft that could carry up to 40 passengers, lifting off vertically from city centers like London and landing directly in places like Paris, completely bypassing crowded airports. To achieve this, it combined the best of both worlds: conventional turboprop engines for forward flight, and a massive overhead rotor powered by tip jets for vertical takeoff. Yes, actual jet nozzles mounted on the tips of its spinning blades. The result looked like something straight out of a retro sci-fi dream: an elegant airliner fused with a giant helicopter rotor, blasting flames from its spinning blades as it rose into the sky. It was both breathtaking and intimidating, like a futuristic machine pulled from a comic book. But there was one massive problem: the noise. The rotor's jet system produced an explosive, thunderous sound so powerful it could literally shatter windows, sealing the fate of this 70,000-pound giant. Still, imagine if engineers had solved that issue. Would you commute in a flying machine like this? Let me know your thoughts, because the next aircraft takes the idea of combining flight styles to an even more dangerous extreme. Coming in at number 9 is the Sikorsky S-72 X-Wing, a NASA-backed experimental aircraft that tried to solve one of the most extreme challenges in aviation history: the stopped rotor concept. In the 1980s, engineers were chasing the ultimate dream: an aircraft that could take off and hover like a helicopter, then transition into high-speed jet-like flight. The bold idea was to use a rigid 4-blade rotor for vertical lift, and then, mid-flight, completely stop it as the aircraft accelerated forward. Visually, the S-72 in its X-Wing configuration looks like a sleek jet fighter that someone forcibly attached a giant rigid cross onto. It resembles something straight out of science fiction, almost identical to an X-Wing starfighter, but grounded in real-world engineering, which makes it even more unsettling. Your brain expects rotor blades to spin and wings to stay still, so seeing 4 massive blades locked in an X formation feels like reality itself is glitching. The concept pushed aerodynamics to its absolute limits, and the risks were so extreme that full testing never truly materialized. So the question is, would you dare to be the test pilot for something this structurally intense and experimental? Let me know, because now we've reached the final aircraft, and trust me, this one is on an entirely different level of terrifying. And finally, at number 10, we reach the absolute peak of aviation insanity: the Lackner HZ-1 Aerocycle, a machine that can only be described as a flying lawnmower with ambitions. In the mid-1950s, the US Army dreamed of giving every soldier a personal flying vehicle for reconnaissance, something so simple that an infantryman could learn to operate it in just 20 minutes. The concept was almost unbelievable: a one-person flying platform controlled just by shifting your body weight to steer. The design itself was brutally minimal: just a small 40-horsepower engine, a metal standing platform, and 2 counter-rotating helicopter rotors. But the reality is where things get truly terrifying. The pilot stood directly above massive, fully exposed rotor blades spinning just beneath their feet, with no enclosure, no protection, and no margin for error. In practice, it looked like strapping yourself to a hovering metal pole above a giant airborne blender and trying to balance in mid-air. At low speeds and low altitude, it was already nerve-wracking, but any imbalance or sudden gust could turn catastrophic in seconds. Unsurprisingly, the military quickly realized that giving soldiers personal flying machines with exposed blades wasn't the safest idea. So let me ask you, would you ever step onto something like this for $1 million?